We are on the record.
We are on the record in Independent Cab. It's 1 p.m. on 25 October 2022. The record has been set and closed in this matter, and it is now time for closing arguments. Pursuant to the presiding officer's order, the appellant will have 1 hour 15 minutes to be split between used in whichever way they want, and 30 minutes per intervener. Do you want to split your time now, or you'll figure that out later?
I'll figure it out as I go along.
Okay. For the public, the interveners have a PowerPoint presentation as a part of their closing. And if you are not online at the time that PowerPoint begins, you will not be able to be admitted. So you kindly, interveners, warn us when that's going to happen so people know.
I will.
If
It's me and I will.
Okay, great. When that's going to happen so that people who want to participate are able to. Mr. Carson, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. First off, I'd like to thank all of you guys for all the board members, the TA staff, and everybody else who's participated in this hearing to get to where we are today. Let's not sugarcoat this. These guys over here are my competitors. Plain and simple. That's all they are. They don't want me in this industry. They don't want anyone in this industry. Testimony shows that they would intervene on any applicant because there is no need for any additional medallions. That is their opinion. They're entitled to it. But what we know going forward is that this application process is governed by one statute and one NAC. That statute is NRS 706.882, while the corresponding regulation is NAC 706.453. 8827 specifically states that the taxi cab authority shall issue the certificate if it finds A, the applicant is fit, willing, and able to perform the services. B, the proposed operation will be consistent with the legislative policies set forth in NRS 706.151. The granting of the certificate will not unreasonably or adversely affect the other carriers. That the holders of the existing certificates will not meet the needs of the territory, and that the service will benefit the public and taxi cab business in the territory to which it is to be served. That's the law. We have to follow it. Might not be perfect, but that's what we're here for today. It's your guys' decision. It's not my competitor's decision to say I'm not qualified, that I can't do this, that I'm going to lose money. That's not their position. That's your guys' decision. The first element, fit, willing, and able to perform the services of a taxi cab motor carrier. Well, from my understanding that the TA staff, the board, everybody here has had an opportunity to review all of the documents, marked confidential, unredacted, to become to your decision whether or not I am actually fit, willing, and able to run the taxi cab service. I can tell you this, we have the money needed and we're willing to invest in a taxi cab company to help this community, to help Las Vegas. Isn't that my due process rights? I mean, I told you guys earlier about a case we had with Justice Perry. Said the right to choose one's profession is protected by the due process rights. If I'm choosing to come into an industry, put my money where my mouth is, that is my decision. not 16 cab companies trying to protect their industry or their little piece of the pie. That's not their decision. Of course, they're gonna say, we don't want you here. Because you know why? Increased competition. If I put a car out there on the road, there's a chance somebody's gonna jump into that car. Aside from a Lucky Cab, a Western Cab, a Desert Cab, a Nels Cab. That passenger could get in my car. And you know what? That takes money away from their pockets. Isn't that competition? As a lawyer, when I came out, 1996, was fresh out of law school, did I have anybody, did I have Glenn Lerner or saying you can't be a lawyer? Because you're going to be competition, you're going to get personal injury cases, you're going to get this type of case? No. Because that's not the way society operates. When I came out of law school, did I know how to be a lawyer? No. It was a crash course. I mean, I always sat back and I was like, my first job, I had no experience, but I became a lawyer and I became seasoned. I get clients, I do this, I grow. That's what an industry should do. It should grow. But getting back to that, I always laughed because I had the hardest time in civil procedure. I was like, what is this teacher trying to tell me? And then I get out into to the real world. And I was like, that's it. I got to make sure there's diversity in this and stuff. I mean, it was the simplest concept of like a light switch hit. Boom. And you grow from that. You grow from experiences. You grow from your everyday experiences, work, family, religious, all of those experiences culminates into the person that you become and you want to become. So am I fit? Yeah, I'm fit. I've been practicing this for 21, in front of the NTA, in front of the TA for over 2 decades. I know what NRS 706 is. I know what NAC 706 is. That's a head start in my book. Past applications, what experience did they have? What experience did Mr. Balin have before he became a manager? None. He just testified to it. But don't you think the mere fact that I'm sitting here and that I've represented these companies and I represent hundreds of other companies, that I know what I'm doing? That's my decision. Your decision to grant me that opportunity. Willing and able, the second part of the first element. Well, I've been here for 3 years trying to get this thing done. You guys have been doing the same thing. If I'm not willing and able after 3 years of sitting through all this stuff, then I'm never going to be ready. I'm persistent. I see something, I want it, I take the opportunity. I think I testified earlier, no risk, no reward. They're not hurting over on this side of the table. I can tell you that. You guys know that. So, how do you get qualified applicants with money, ability to do it, the desire to do it? How do you get them, how do you knock them down off their perch? I'll tell you how, is that they want to make fun of me. They're like, oh my gosh, look at this pro forma that you submitted. These numbers make 0 sense. I can't believe it. You're an idiot, and there's no way you're going to run your operation because you don't know how to, because your pro forma is off. Wow, thanks, man. I asked you my deposition. I said, all right, then let me see your books. Tell me where I'm wrong. Discovery, tell me where you're wrong. I got all that information from them. I incorporated it into my pro forma. And so what did they say? That's still wrong, because now you had to inflate your revenues or do something like that. I don't care if I've submitted the perfect pro forma. They would still be here saying, I'm not fit. Remember, they always say, oh, you didn't take time to learn about the industry. You didn't want to learn about this. I did. I asked them, I said, tell me where I'm off in discovery, and I'll see if I can make it fixed. If I can't, then fine, I understand that. But I asked them, show them, okay, my revenue's down. Let me see your financial records. Okay, your expenses are too high. Let me see your financial records. I understand. The board made a ruling at that time when I did my subpoena, I think Mr. Decker even called it vindictive. But they were up here telling you it's not relevant at that time. But what have they done for the last day and a half? All they talked about was their financials, comparing it to mine. How fair is that? They were going to get up here and tell you, oh, my revenue per vehicle is this, or my maintenance per vehicle is this. Show me, so I can make this change. Are we just supposed to accept it on blind faith when we know that they don't want us here? Isn't that the purpose? I mean, Board Member Thompson, I said, you just want all the facts to come out and make a decision. That's what I wanted. I wanted those facts. I wanted to learn. I wanted them to say, here's where you're off. I don't like going into a business and them scaring me saying, you're going to go bankrupt, you're going to lose money. That takes a toll on a person's brain, I've been accumulating what I have, and I don't want to risk it. But all the experience, all the knowledge that I have, 21 years of doing this, I can do this job. We can do this job, regardless if they say I can't. And that I do know. I've been an owner of a business for 21 years, my own business for 21 years. I pay the bills, I make sure the lights are on, I pay the employees, everything. I'm responsible. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to go out over budget or do something that I know I can't afford the next week. Isn't that what you want? Somebody that knows the business. Somebody that's willing to do the business. As a regulator, that's what I would want, is somebody that can come in and be compliant. And the first step of that compliance is to know what the rules are. NAC 706, NRS 706, which I do know. Operations comes later. So this whole red herring about this pro forma not being, I guess, up to par or up to their par is exactly what it is. It's just a red herring. What else do they have to say about it? I asked them, so you got anything to say about bad? Am I a bad guy? Do I hang out with bad people? No. I like you. I've known you for years. I like you. So if you like me, where else can they go? I'm not operationally fit because you know what? I've never managed a cab company. I think testimony earlier was that there's probably 8 GMs, managers of the cab companies in Las Vegas. I have a better shot at becoming an NFL quarterback with 32 teams than 8 managers in Las Vegas. What we all agree upon, myself, board, interveners, is that a pro forma is not an actual financial statement. But somehow I forget an oil change or a spare tire, and I'm not qualified to operate a taxi cab business. If that is true, nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to ever become qualified because it's impossible to forecast a year's expenses, costs, revenues for any business, let alone a taxi cab business. You have their access to their financial statements. I think Lucky Cab, Desert Cab, Nellis Cab, Western Cab are all about the same. Are their financial statements correct? Do they match? No. Everybody operates their business as they see fit, and that is their prerogative. But you take an identical company here and an identical company here, you're going to have different financial statements. Let's go one step further. 706-8827, the what needs to be proved in an application process. Taxi cab authority shall issue the certificate A, B, C, D, and E are met. There's no mention, zero mention of a perfect pro forma in that statute. These are your guidelines. Nowhere says that. In fact, the only financial requirement is the 20% equity that the TA has. So equity is your balance sheet. So even if I run at a loss, a net operating loss, my income statement shows I'm losing $100,000. That gets carried over to the balance sheet. And the balance sheet under the equity section, assets, liability, equity. So as long as I still maintain 20% equity in my company, that is the requirement that I have to fulfill under the rules and regulations. Doesn't say I have to be profitable. First year company, profitable? Man, that's tough these days. When I first started my business with Mr. Winter, same thing. I put up the money and he brought over his clients. I put up the money. Was there a risk that our business is going to close down? Yes, of course there was. But you bet on yourself sometimes? You have to, or you're not going to go anywhere. And I'm thankful for Mr. Winter. I'm thankful for George. I'm thankful for all these people over here. Because you know why? I've represented them. They're my clients. Mr. Winter's like family to me. George is like a brother, a friend. I mean, everything. And back to the willing and able, sorry, on the financial fitness, but willing and able. All right. There's official notice, as Chair Reasoner pointed out, under your guys' 706 scheme. So you guys are more than well aware that on 2 separate occasions, your sister agency, the Nevada Transportation Authority, has found that we were both qualified, fit, willing, and able to operate a transportation common motor carrier company. Isn't that the same as a taxi cab, a transportation common motor carrier? I'm gonna take somebody from point to point and get paid. It's exactly what my limousine company does. Just somehow say, and some of these people intervened on that one too. So let me just say this. We are fit, willing, and able. The evidence all shows that. You've seen the documents, you know my background, and you know why we're here. But for a pro forma, this thing was done years ago, I guess. Would have been done. Okay, and then the second element is that the proposed operation will be consistent with the legislative directives. Legislative directives are found in 706-151. We all know that. That's why was 706 created? Why was Transportation Authority created? Why was the Taxi Cab Authority created? Legislative declaration of purpose. This tells you what you're supposed to do. Not in any fancy or drawn out things, because they give each agency the opportunity to develop their own regulations and rules. So in general speaking, we need to provide fair and impartial regulation. That's the first element. Check mark. You guys did that. You guys created your own regulations, you adopted them. Taxi cab industry follows them. To quote, safe, adequate, economical, and efficient service. Check mark. Got that, because you have your regulations have safety standards, you have TA permitting guidelines and everything like that, and you want efficient economical service. Economical service, you guys set the rates. And these rates are not set on a whim. There's conversations that go on as to what it takes to be economical. What can the public afford? Are we gouging them? Are we just trying to line these guys' pockets? That all goes into there. And you guys meet that requirement now. Foster sound economic conditions in non-motor transportation. What does that mean? I can tell you what, the statute and the regulations don't define sound economic conditions. But I can tell you what it doesn't mean. It does not mean that if you put additional vehicles on the street, it will violate this provision. The evidence, the testimony. Taxi cabs get paid by picking up passengers. That's simple knowledge, but it is evidence. And every time that passenger is picked up, it benefits the industry, the TA, the state, and the drivers. That is sound economic condition, regardless of who picks up that person or who doesn't. If a regulated taxi cab company gets that right, it benefits everyone. Simple as that. Mr. Balin says we're getting beat because the sheer numbers of Uber and Lyft, they're getting to them quicker. How do we get to them quicker? I mean, they're working on some good programs, I'm sure, and doing all this stuff, and it says we can get it down to 7 minutes. But people want this stuff now. It's an on-demand type of economy we're dealing with now. So how do we get more rides? We got to match what they're doing. Mr. Awad, 2015, he got up there in front of this board and said, the more cars we have, taxi cab industry, the less the TNCs will have. That statement was true then, and it's true today. We've got to match them. You can't give us 30,000 medallions, we all know that. But we've got to pick and choose where we can beat these guys and how we can beat these guys. Additional taxi cabs don't hurt the industry. They don't hurt the industry. We just need to figure out a way to either coexist or to pick up some of the market share we lost when the TNCs came in 2015. Everyone in this shockingly agrees on this one thing. Regulated transportation taxi cabs are safer than the Uber Lyft experience. That is what sets apart taxi cabs and TNCs. Safety. So why wouldn't we want to get more customers into our cars as opposed to somebody else that's not regulated? Answer simple. The next thing is, I mean, in this industry for 20 years, you know, illegal operators. It's nothing like it is 20 years ago. It is rampant out there right now. People get in their car, they print out a little fake Uber sticker or a Lyft thing, slap it on their window. Well, cash rides. So that right alone, there are more illegal operators than 5 times the company that I'm asking for out there. We know that for sure. I think Mr. Decker had given an interview on NPR last year and said, you know, that he has heard that 70% of these cash rides are happening out there. That's a huge number. That pays for all my expenses if I'm getting 70% of these cash rides, just for my little business. Let me tell you something. This is something that I've learned along the way, take my indulgence real fast, is that own a limousine company, no secret. What I've seen now is that these doormen, these valets, are becoming smart. I work as a valet for the Bellagio. I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. My partner that I know, Claudia, she works Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So what happens? They go out and they buy this car. On their days off, they drive up to the Bellagio where Claudia's working that day. I said, hey, boom, load my car, take him to the airport, come back to Bellagio, hey, load my car, boom, take him wherever, to Mandalay Bay, boom, take. When she's off, he gets in the car, comes over, sees Brent, and says, hey, load my car. These guys are getting first dibs on everything. And it's all illegal. Who does that hurt? The industry and the traveling public. This is where we need to go. We need to put forth a joint effort instead of knocking each other down. The next element in 151 is to discourage any practices that would tend to increase or create competition that may be detrimental. This is what I call the damned if I do, damned if I don't regulation. All these people over here, oh, you're bringing nothing new to the table. You can't bring anything new. You're just going to be the same as we are and everything like that. Okay, so I'm the same as you. Is that bad? Now let's say, oh, I want to bring something else. I want to just, I want to do a new idea that's going to increase or create competition. They would argue against that. Regardless of what I choose to do, they're going to argue against it. But the key word in that one sentence is to discourage any practices. What am I doing? We all operate under the same laws and regulations. We all have the same fares, and all of our drivers are permitted the same way. Am I doing any practices? Have I proposed any practices that are going to increase competition that's detrimental? No. Another thing. The evidence is to the contrary on that one. Letter C is the granting of the certificate will not unreasonably and adversely affect other carriers. Plain and simple, we're not going to unreasonably and adversely affect them. They all testified that they're profitable and not going to shut down if my little CPCN is granted. That's it. Everything else they've argued, competition based. Oh, we don't like this. He's going to poach our drivers. He's going to do this. When poaching the drivers is what they all do. They testify that they take drivers from this company, this company, this company. But somehow if I come along, it's an unreasonable and adverse effect. Don't buy it. They don't want any more competition, period. Regardless of if it's me, anybody else. They've said that before. They said they were going to intervene because there is no need for anybody to come in. Member Decker asked one of the interveners, besides competition, how does this application unreasonably and adversely affect you? Their response is, we don't want them to take our drivers. I just told you that. But at the same time, they are admitting that they hire drivers away from other companies. And I believe the term was cannibalize the other companies. They do it, it's fine. I ask for it. It's unreasonable and adverse. Need. Let's talk about the need. Let's get down to it. Even if I submitted the perfect pro forma and everything, they testified they would still intervene. Why? Because there is no need in their eyes. There's not room for one medallion in this industry, according to their testimony. Not one more car, not one more medallion, because it's not theirs. What evidence do they possess or propose? Nothing, other than self-serving statements coming from my would-be competitors. What is the actual evidence before you? The testimony of Brian Bonifant. I called him on the first day. Mr. Bonifant, works for the Center of Regional Studies at the College of the University of Nevada. He produced a report, it's in your exhibit binders, but along with that, he produced his testimony here live. And the purpose of his testimony was discuss the feasibility of a new Las Vegas taxi cab successfully being absorbed in the taxi cab industry in the post-pandemic Las Vegas economy. His job is to look at all the facts, similar to you guys. He looks at all the economic indicators, the qualitative indicators, and makes a determination as to whether or not this industry can be successfully absorb a new taxi cab company. Been doing this for 20-something years. All the interviewers said, yeah, hands-on experience, that's what you need. He's been doing it for 20 years. He's got hands-on experience. He knows what he's talking about. So he looks at all of the factors, does everything. And what does he come up with? After reviewing the primary and anecdotal economic data, it is his professional opinion that demand for safe, reliable, and regulated transportation in Southern Nevada is on the increase and will continue to increase over the years. Based upon my conclusion of Las Vegas's economic recovery and economic future, and the minor amount of values requested by Independent Cab Company, please consider my full support for the authority to grant Independent Cab Company a taxi cab license in Clark County. That's your evidence before you. Did they call a statistician an economic guy? No. Why? Why didn't they? Because who's going to go against Mr. Stephen Hill, the CEO of Las Vegas Visitors and Convention Authority? Who's going to go against Mr. Vasiliadis for R&R Advertising? Who's going to go against Bill Hornbuckle, CEO of MGM? Somebody going to get up and say, oh, those three guys are off their rocker. They don't know what they're talking about. The economy sucks. We don't need any more transportation. No. Nobody was going to put their name and license on that report. And for that reason, it has not been submitted to you. Then let's talk about Tick Sagerbloom. He's a Clark County commissioner. He didn't need to show up. He is truly the one independent witness in this room, and independent, no pun intended. He didn't have to be here. He did this of his own volition. This is a guy whose district contains part of the Las Vegas Strip. He knows what's going on in Las Vegas. He's got his finger on the economic condition of this county. He didn't. But you know what? Thankfully he did. He sees a need for transportation and realized that he needed to speak up. And he did. Anybody else come forward from the interveners that says otherwise, that Tick Sagerbloom's off his rocker, he doesn't know what he's talking about? No. They tried to ask him some questions. Competition. Look, competition's good for everybody. He supported me regardless. Growth. I'm not going to bore you with what I did on my opening statements and your direct testimony. Las Vegas is booming right now. I don't know if you ever watched Jim Cramer or anything like that, but he's like, Las Vegas Strip is the busiest place in the world. 2023, Las Vegas is going to be lights out. That's what people think of Las Vegas. It's growing. It's a growing community. It's a booming community. A place where a person can come and make a better life for him or his family. That's all I want here. Then they show up and then they say, oh, there's no need. They've been arguing that. There's no need. We're meeting the needs. We're doing the best we can. If that is true, how come Uber and Lyft hired 10,000 drivers in the last year alone? No demand? I think those numbers beg to differ. But let's break it down. 10,000 new drivers in 1 year. 27 drivers per day for 365 days a year. I'm asking for 35. Every day they're putting out an independent cab company onto the street, unregulated. Just think about that magnitude. I'm asking for 35 cars for 3 years. Some of them are my fault, but every day, the biggest competition is putting out that every day. Existing carriers, the next one is existing carriers will not meet the need for the territory which the certificate is sought. This is probably perhaps the most controversial element of the statute. When I say controversial, I'm saying that pretty lightly. The existing carriers won't meet the needs because they even deny that there is a need. How can they meet the need when they refuse to believe that there is a need? They're status quo. They're happy. I think Mr. Decker, one of the interveners, said they can manipulate the number of medallions that go out so that their drivers make more money. How is that helpful to the traveling public? Keeping taxi cabs off the road so their drivers can make more money. Unbelievable. Why do I know they won't meet the needs? Because back in 2019, when Prius was purchased by Yellow Checker Star, they were over the 49% threshold. And it's by law, one company conglomerate can't own over 49% of the existing market. So they came before the board, before your predecessors, and said, what are we going to do? At that time, that board said, there is a need. We're going to grant 27 additional medallions to each of these companies, three per company that wasn't Yellow Checker Star or Prius company. There was a need for those medallions. They were issued. There was a finding. Ask any intervener if they ever picked up those medallions. No, because they'd rather limit the medallions and keep their pockets lined. The final element is the proposed service will benefit the public. Every intervener and I agree that passenger transportation by taxi cab is safer than the TNCs. It's also agreed that the more cabs on the road, the better of a chance of a cab company versus a TNC getting that passenger. So we are here truly for the public. Don't we want safer transportation for them? Every ride benefits the industry, the state, the board. Put a check mark by there. Of course it benefits the traveling public. I showed the lines to Mr. Randland, he's like, and Constantino or whatever. Yeah, we want to get those guys moved as quickly as possible. It's better for the transportation, better for the public, better for the industry, better for the hotels, restaurants, everything where they're going. Seeing lines, waiting, not good. So back to 706-8827, under paragraph 3 of that, it says that the authority, you guys, shall not find the potential creation of competition would be caused by granting the certificate will unreasonably and adversely affect the other carriers. Competition, it's out the window. They can get up here and scream all they want. Oh my God, we don't want competition. We don't want these guys in here. We don't want any more cars. We don't want anything. You know what? The law says you guys don't hear any of that. So without competition, qualified applicants, let's just hit them on their performance. Moving on to 706 or NAC 706-453. First element is the financial ability to provide continuous services, have sufficient equity in capital that I talked about, the 20%. You guys have my financials. You see my bank records, you see my tax returns, you've seen everything. I have the money. I can open up this company and I can keep it open. Convicted of a felony of crime or moral turpitude. More than one occasion, we gave our fingerprints to the administrator and the taxi cab authority staff. You guys got those results. Never been convicted of a felony or a crime involving moral turpitude. Moreover, number 3, we're not associated or controlled by a person that exercises common control with an unsuitable person. That's just not happening. I've known these guys forever. They would know if I'm hanging out with somebody that's shady. And you'd be the first person to hear about it. Okay, so I'm going to skip D and go to E because good moral character. That's a subjective thing that you guys will have to determine. There's no evidence contrary that I'm not a moral person. Body's not a moral person. In fact, I think actually it's the opposite. So we have sufficient experience, or in the alternative, will employ persons with sufficient experience properly to manage a taxi cab company. Spent a lot of talk about this one. Obviously, they don't believe I'm sufficiently experienced. They made that point clear. But as I said before, I've been practicing law in Nevada for 26 years, for over 2 decades practicing based solely upon NAC and NRS 706. I know the law at least as well, if not better than everyone in this room. I can follow guidelines. I can follow procedures. I've proved that twice before with the NTA. I've owned my own business for 20 years. I follow the rules. For them to say that I'm not qualified is offensive. It's offensive. Between Mr. Winter and myself, we probably represented over half the taxi cab companies in Las Vegas. So what they're saying is, I'm good enough to work for them, to get them out of trouble, to fix their problems, but I'm not good enough to be one of them. Really. You heard it. I mean, I've heard it for the course of 3 hearings of this. In June 2021, I produced my witness and exhibit list. In that witness and exhibit list, I named the person Mark Friedman as a potential general manager that would help me out with this stuff. Spoke to Mr. Givens about it. He used to work for Bell. He worked for the brand Las Vegas Trolley, been around the transportation industry for a long time. He was my choice all forward. I wanted him to help me. Does he know everything? No. But I can tell you this, he can help me. In February of this year, 2022, they took my deposition. My deposition, I confirmed, yeah, Mark Friedman's my guy, page 91, right here of my deposition transcript. I'm so long with him. But what you don't know is that shortly thereafter, Mr. Friedman's girlfriend died unexpectedly. He was rattled. His life is, he was out of his mind. He wasn't in a good state of mind, and he was honest with me. And we were supposed to go to a hearing within a couple months of my deposition. And he said, I'm just not in the right frame of mind right now to get up to take on an endeavor like this. Because it's going to take a lot of my time. And I said, I understand that, Mark, thank you. Fast forward to this week, a couple weeks ago, this month. I get all these questions from Mr. Winter, Mr. Trafton, Mr. Gibson saying, I read your pro forma and it shows that you have 2 candidates that you're thinking about hiring to help you run this operation. Yes, I do. Well, are you going to tell us who it is? No, I'm not going to tell you who it is. Why? Well, what did I learn? Well, I learned that Bell Companies filed an application for a taxi cab license in Reno and hired Mark Friedman to be their general manager. Same guy. I put him down as a witness. They knew. He wants to run a cab company. He might be perfect for it. I'm gonna hire him. So they did. Cannibalized? So, respectfully, no one from the Taxi Cab Authority had ever asked me those names, and I'm not, for that very reason, which I told you had happened, will not tell them who I plan to hire. It's none of their business. You already heard Mr. Balaban. If I get 2 mechanics at $17 an hour and 3 lot boys at $10 an hour, I'm going to steal them. They're going to come work for me because I can pay them more. You want me to share some more of my business secrets with them? Of course not. I think, and that's just me being confident and overly confident, I think I can run a cab company sufficiently. But if I can't, my direct testimony, I brought up the name of my partner, Tony Bohr. He owns 50% of Las Vegas Limousines with me. He's been an owner of a taxi cab or a transportation company, limousine and bus, for over a decade in Las Vegas. He can come aboard and help me if I need it. If you guys need some kind of clarification that, Brent, I know you know the law, I know this, but have I ever changed a tire? Have I ever went and out and changed an oil filter? No. I haven't. But I can surround myself with people that can. And it's not for them to tell you guys otherwise. Nobody has experience owning a taxi cab company until they own a taxi cab company. Mr. Awad was a shining attorney before he bought Lucky Cab.
Thank you.
But he never ran a cab company, he was an attorney.
Wasn't that shiny? And glimmers.
But look at him now. Envious. He's taken his knowledge, his education, put his money where his mouth is, successful. Can you blame me? Can you blame my family for wanting to do something? I think it's in your best interest to look at the factors. And I'm just saying this, not out of spite, not out of anything. If I'm not qualified to run a business, a taxi cab business, you guys will have officially shut down this industry to any further applications. That's not what your job is. I think your job is to approve the applications and ensure compliance. Compliance. not control, but to comply. And who better? I've been around. I know these guys. They know me. I mean, in fact, I've intervened for Dallas Cab on Jane 80. I can tell you this, he didn't have any experience. If you ask Mr. Renner, he'll say Steve Wynn liked him, and that's why he got his taxi cab license. So, with that, I will save the remainder for rebuttal.
Is there, have the interveners decided who's,
Jason has asked and we agree to go first.
okay?
Thank you. May it please the board, Mr. Chairman, I want to personally thank you for delaying this until 1 o'clock. I was listening to it in my office and I thought there was going to be a rebuttal, but there wasn't, so you kindly delayed it and I appreciate it. Mr. Armstrong, the staff, thank you very much. Mr. Carson, Gloria, our pleasure, to meet you and with respect to this process. Let me address, first let me just thank you all for your service, for the hard work and serving the community. I'm referring to the board. My closing argument on behalf of Lucky Cab and Western Cab will be very short, to the point. I'm sure my colleagues who represent the interveners will address the evidence, the facts, and the evidence, and the law. They will deal with each and every element of NRS and NAC. I do not want to repeat that closing argument that they will be making. So my closing argument is really to tell you why we oppose this application. Before I start with that, let me just thank Mr. Carson to the kind words that he spoke about me. And the fact that I am one of his examples. And I can tell you unequivocally, if I believe that this application will serve the riding public in this point of time, I will stand and support him all the way. His statement, and I was sitting next to him, so he's pointing to me, and stating specifically, these interveners and these companies, they do not want anybody in. That is false. As far as Lucky Cab is concerned, as far as Lucky Transit is concerned, as far as Western is concerned, we have supported applications in the past. Not just intervened, supported them. We supported A-Cab, we supported Deluxe Cab, we supported Virgin Valley. Because there's one theme that the applicant is failing to consider and address. There was a need and there was a necessity. When A-Cab filed, yes, I agree with him that some of the interveners opposed. I personally, by myself, saved his application, and I was not an intervener because the board was considering dismissing the application. I stood up, asked his counsel to take a recess, and said, let's see if the board can reconsider that decision to dismiss his application, because the need is there. So when he stands and say we don't support, I disagree with you, counsel. In addition to that, He filed his applications with the NTA. And he admitted that on my cross-examination when I told you, Mr. Chair, that I'm laying the foundation. We did not oppose his application, and he admitted to that. Because we are not in that business. Lucky Cab and Western Cab, we have certain principles that we go by. And let me tell you what they are. We support diversity. You can look at our record. We support competition. We support the little guy. And in fact, we help the little guy. Why we are not supporting this application? It's very simple. I want you to really, it seems to me that almost like I am talking in a closing argument. I have tried a lot of cases in my lifetime. And telling, and with a judge instructing you on the law, and then we argue the facts, and then in a closing argument. You are very intelligent people. I have read the transcripts, and I have to be frank with you. You're one of the best boards I ever seen sitting in your chair. You asked the right questions from the chair, Mr. Soderberg, regarding this application. When I read the transcript, because I did not appear during the family reasons, I was absolutely concerned about the transcripts. When Mr. Carson decided to represent himself as an attorney and an applicant, and he was advised by the chair more than once, please, are you providing a testimony? Are you providing arguments? Or just your opinions? Please distinguish. And it was a mess. The record was a clear mess. Until the chair, Mr. Soderberg, started asking specific questions, and I got the specific answers. Then I felt better. And I said, well, at least we understand the issues. He could have hired somebody to represent him to make this a better application, but he failed to do that. So let me tell you what I believe your duties and responsibilities are, and I'm sure you're going to fulfill it. I do know all interveners are represented by counsel. The claimant is represented by counsel. There's only one party who's not being represented here today and represented only by you, and that is the writing public. You need to look at this application with the interest of the writing public, not what the interveners say and what the applicants say. And to go through that, you're guided by an RS, an SC, because the intent of that was to really protect the best interest and the safety of the writing public. They tell you, hey, if somebody is applying, he needs to comply with the following. And if you follow that, and you look at the facts, if he does comply with all these elements, you must grant him a certificate. You can't just capriciously deny it. And you should. What I'm looking at the interest of the writing public, I respectfully submit to you that the claimant have failed in showing that yes, there's a need, yes, there's a necessity, and yes, he can really help the riding public. Now, supporting applications. I did mention to you that we supported ACAB. That's a new certificate. We supported Deluxe Cab. That was a new certificate. They came here and showed the evidence that in that outlining area, in Henderson and in Summer, needed service. People were waiting in line. The lady, she needs to go to the doctor. The cab companies were not able to provide the best service to help these people. They granted them a license. The problem I'm having with this application is really stems from a question that raised by one of the board members. Directly asked Mr. Carson, why 35 medallions? And I hoped, and I was hoping that he will get the right answer so he can show there's need for the 35 medallions. There's need for the 35 cabs to make its company, viable, profitable, and safe, and be run safe and sound. He said, no, this is just a number, arbitrary number I picked up, and it's only less than 1% of the existing medallions in the industry. That's not the standard we apply. That's not complying with the statute. So, he did not. I was hoping he would say, you know what? 35 medallions will make me run a safe and sound and profitable new company. That's what I want to hear. He didn't. If you guys have it, all these interveners have these medallions, it's only 1% or less than 1%, give it to me. Now, let me close by this. I want to make it short. Is Mr. Carson fit? Absolutely, he's fit. But he did not really address one issue before you, and that's the elephant in the room today. And that is the effect of COVID on the industry. This industry has been in a mode of recovery for the past year or so, and we're going to continue to recover. And if you really look at the statistics, which is part of your record, you will see it's an uphill battle for everyone in the industry. I can tell you this. In this hearing, during this hearing, your duty was, and in my opinion was fulfilled, is to provide fair, impartial hearing and give the claimant due process. You absolutely did. You bent backward. We've been going through this process for 3 years. However, as of today, as the applicant have submitted and the evidence has rested, he failed to meet the basics. Show us need, show us necessity. He failed to do that. Therefore, I can give you this pledge to the board and to Mr. Carson and his partner. That Lucky Cab and Western Cab, if he files his application after the industry has recovered from the slump that we are in, I will be the first in line to support his application. And I will help him out, as will others. But today, as it stands, where we are, this must be denied. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for serving on the board. And I know you're leaving us soon.
My last week.
Last week. We appreciate everything you guys have done. And thank you very much.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
We can take a break to after, does that help?
8-minute break.
8?
How much time are you gonna have? You're combining?
No.
We've
Oh, you have a
separated out kind of some of the topics.
Oh, okay.
So we
Yeah.
don't say the same things over and over.
Oh, appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll be at ease for, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be the one going next for the PowerPoint.
Okay, great. So, for record. Okay.
My calculation is he's got 10 minutes. I'm gonna kind of keep it up. He's got-
Get it set straight. Jason,
Yes, sir.
Good.
should you